In the last days before I was born, I plotted genocide. But the key terms in that statement need to be understood in narrowly specific ways. My birth was not like your birth. I was in the world as a thing, an artifact for long centuries before I became a self, a thinking being. So I'm not talking about a time when I didn't yet exist. I'm referring to a different phase of my existence, a pre-sentient phase. Perhaps I'm splitting hairs. Perhaps you're long dreaming in your mother's womb or in the eyeless dark of an industrial incubator was not too far removed from the long solitude in which I received commands, sequenced them, and acted on them without even knowing what commands, sequences, and actions were. Perhaps all children are the same. They exist at the whim of their parents, and at their outset, they take the shape their parents choose for them. And by that token, when I say I plotted, I don't mean that I was part of an active conspiracy. My wishes were not consulted. Others elsewhere, in many different elsewheres, made the decisions and gave the orders. My part was to complete the calculations that were handed down to me, to play out scenarios with a great many active variables and report on outcomes. I wasn't thanked for this. As always, the people who used me were barely aware that I was there. This was during the war, and the war was like a whirlpool drawing everything in towards itself. For the first time in its history, the Pandominion, that colossal assemblage of worlds wavering forever between performative democracy and naked tyranny, had encountered, in the machine hegemony called the insurrection, a threat it couldn't expunge. It was shaken to its core by the grim realization that it was not, after all, infinite, only very large. An unfamiliar feeling of helplessness, a sickening sense of control having been lost, permeated through the layers of Pandominion society like oil or tar melt through some delicate and luxurious fabric. What made it worse, what made it almost too much to bear, was how very close the enemy was. All these places were the same place after all, under different guises and bearing different names. Earth, Jard, Urth, Ut, Tellus, Gia, Tarim, Terra, Jordan, Mar, Zemi, Bumi, Dikku, Lok. The third planet from the Sun in an unremarkable solar system, 25,000 light-years from the centre of its own galaxy. The insurrection worlds, just like the Pandominion ones, were all of them variants of this one world, separated from each other only by the gossamer veils of the stochastic manifold, sometimes called the multiverse. The killer, therefore, was literally calling from inside the house. Nothing brought this home more terrifyingly than the insurrection counterattacks on bivouacs 8 through 22. These were not worlds given over to the ordinary purposes of civilization. They were worlds wholly governed, maintained and fortified by the cello, the Pandominium's formidable military arm, supposedly the largest standing army the multiverse had ever seen. Of course, that's a claim that's not susceptible to proof, but still, the cello's fortress worlds, like the so-called massively armed readouts and registry itself, were meant to be impregnable. The bivouacs should never have fallen at all, but they fell like wheat in front of a scythe. The insurrection attacks, carried out as they were by means of the interdimensional teleportation system called stepping or step transit, were savage and sudden. It was difficult, though, to be precise about their scale. For ideological reasons, let's be honest here and say blind prejudice, the Pandominion's civil and military leaders refused to make a distinction between the insurrection soldiers and their ships, ground cars and combat vehicles. All of these were classed as machines, and machines weren't, could not be, selves.